So where's Robin
taking
gone?
me back is here. It's taken me to square one.
Okay.
So I don't know. Normally, okay.
I was trying to call for you,
In,
Caroline,
out, in.
but in the side thing, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Did you guys come out?
No,
Well,
I
yeah, I don't know.
along.
I was still there,
Robin,
but
the way you went.
well, I don't know what happened. Namsa logged out, and then it put me in the waiting room. So I was like, oh, okay, here, I guess.
Oh,
I didn't touch anything.
Normally,
fun and games.
okay. No,
Fun and
normally,
games.
when you come out, normally you have to re-continue the streaming. So I don't know what happened.
Well, we're live again.
Okay,
So,
so
Caroline, if you want to continue.
Yeah.
Okay, we have,
And it's about
to start. Hi, Mohammed.
Mohammed.
How you doing?
hi, Mohammed.
We're talking
Oh,
about
sweet.
humility. If you want to join us to the conversation, please do, and feel free to type a comment either way. We're happy to spend time with you. What do you guys think? Do you think we should start from the beginning? The other?
Oh, you're cutting out again.
Namsa, you're still cutting out.
Yeah.
Like, definitely can't hear you at all.
Mm.
I did catch that you said we should start over, but I don't think we need to.
Okay, you guys talk.
Okay. So I think I was sharing because actually as a motorbike came by and I sort of stopped getting when it was driving me out. So there was that I was sharing, which was humility is a great quality of leadership which derives respect and not just fear or hatred. And this is what we're sharing and I'm agreeing with you with Robin about. It's not about leading through fear and hatred and getting people just to do things because they're fearful of you. It's because they are with you. It's because you actually are encouraging and empowering them to do the best, and you're acknowledging the successes, but you're also aware of where things are not going right, and you don't blame people. There's no blame. So this is what humility is about. It's not about casting blame, saying that you're wrong or I'm wrong. It's just recognizing that something's not working, but also as the leader taking responsibility for what maybe you could have done better or what things you could now put in place to ensure it doesn't happen again, so you can then move forward. It's just about reviewing it, acknowledging it, and moving forward. And so really that's what is important. And Nonsa mentioned these days there's not many good leaders. I think that over the years, many years, there's not been that many good leaders. And it's not about the quantity. I think it's about the ones that we have had that we can actually learn from. That they understand who they are and what they bring to the table. So they know themselves. They know what they're capable of. They know their limitations, and they're willing to ask for help if they need it. Being authentic is part of being humble and working together, working with others, and not one that says, I got to do all this, I can do it, and not allowing others there to show their strengths. It's about letting other people use their strengths, encouraging to strengthen their weaknesses. So empowering them encouraging them to keep learning, to keep training, upgrading their skills, because it is about learning all the time. And a great leader actually always learning, improving themselves, because they recognize that they don't haven't got it all fixed, they've got it all sorted. There's always something else that they can learn. What do you think, Robin?
Yeah, I completely agree, Carol Ann. I love what you're saying about learning from each other. I think that is like step number one, honestly. And not just learning from the person in charge, but like the person in charge learning from, their employees and the people in their workplace, because I feel like that's really what humility is all about, is being able to accept that you don't know everything, and that even though somebody is in a lower position than you, or even someone's younger than you, or whatever that looks like, that doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to learn something from them. And I think so keeping a really open mind, and being willing to learn from absolutely everybody and anybody, is really what it takes to be a good leader. Because one, you're going to be able to admit when you've made a mistake, and you're also going to be able to learn from that and move forward in a way that's not like everyone's like watch or wanting you to fail, right? When we have this really like ego-based attitude, we're not willing to learn anything new. When we make mistakes, all of our employees are probably going to be like that was deserved, versus, hey, it's okay. We're all human. We're all working together here. We'll learn and we'll move on, right? And just because you're a boss doesn't mean you're going to be perfect, right? I think about this a lot, because obviously, like, I own my business, so I have quite a few staff that look up to me. So that's obviously a very important thing for me to make sure that I'm emulating. But at the same time, even in my job, I work with a lot of children, and so I get to see a lot of teachers and grown-ups and parents and all of those things that don't have humility when working with children, and do think that they're better than them because they're older. But once I came into this business, I was like, no. Just because they're little doesn't mean that we can't learn from them, number one. And it also doesn't mean that they're not smarter than us, because they probably are in a lot of ways. We can learn a lot from children as far as like, being in the present moment and being kind. And there's so many things that we can learn, despite the fact that maybe we're in a teacher role and they're in a student role, right? So I think no matter kind of which field that you're working in, that learning from each other is key. And I've always said this in the past as well. No matter what age you are, you need a younger mentor and you need an older mentor, because you're going to be able to learn from both. And that's super, super important to, continuing on and being successful in the future, is having a mentor on both sides, and being willing to learn from both, despite, the differences there. I don't know if you want to talk, Namsa.
I love that. I love that. Sorry, I'm not sure Noms is with us, but I love what you just said, actually. That older mentor and a younger mentor. So it's not a case you say to older, I've got more to teach than me. It's about everybody's got something from everybody. And as you say, quite right, teachers have got to learn from their students in many ways. And it's a two-way thing, and it's something that I've advocated for a long time, because unless you listen to your students, you don't know actually what's going on for them, or how they're learning or not learning, what their struggles are. And so you can't adapt how you're teaching what it is you want to get over to them. But once you listen to them and you talk to them and you share, then you can, and to know how it is you can explain better so that they understand them. did you know coming from? And you then learned something about the way you were teaching it because it wasn't working. So again, it just gives you, it broadens your teaching skills about how to put things over in different ways. So it certainly is about, it's a two-way thing. And I love that, yeah, age both ways. Either way, you've got something to learn either way. And
Totally.
beautiful. So, and it is about working together, definitely. So Nomsa, were you going to in there? Nomsa, are you with us? Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, it sounds okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, my connection
Keep going.
is coming off and off. And off. Why? Yeah, you go ahead. So I will take over after Carol Ann or Robin. Who wants to go?
You go.
Yeah.
You go.
Yeah, if you want to go ahead.
What would you like to say?
For me, I would like to lead humanity in leadership. A leader does not seek followers, even though you deserve it, but you don't seek you don't seek them because the energy that you give out there automatically, like if I was to find out, I've noticed this with the most professional. When you look at it, when you look for them, all they want is the audience first. They want the clarification of the audience before they can discuss what they can give. But then there are some professional speakers, when you speak to them, they want to know what is expected from them first. And then they want to find out the audience, what kind of audience you have. But some people, most of the speakers that I speak to, they are all about the audience. They're not all about giving. It's those people, I think, the speakers that have gone through challenges and they're big, and even other speakers that are big, when you speak to them, it's all about what I can get from you instead of what they can give to the audience. And some of the speakers that were at Ngozi talk shows, when they left, realizing it was never about giving to the audience, it was all about the followers. How many followers can I get? How many followers or I can get from you? If you have that attitude as the leadership, because it's like when we are here right now, there might be somebody who is going through struggling with the leadership or struggling with something when we come on every single day at Ngozi Talk Show. And that person comes on and they find the video, one of our video, and they find a solution. Can you imagine the energy that you bring to Ngozi talk shows, or the energy you bring to your company if you have your own company? And that's why I'm saying that this is something that I have learned from people that not many people, Robin was saying, are all about giving, are all about saving. They're all about how they can be saved. If I come and speak to your event, or if I come and speak at Ngozi talk shows, what am I going to get as a speaker or as a coach? So if you have that mind, whatever success you have as a business person, you will struggle to overcome every stumbling block that comes your way, because that's the energy that you are putting there. Don't get me wrong with yes, they do succeed. They do succeed and get to go, but that is not serving. it means you put your heart out. Of course, yes, I need to find out if I'm a good fit. If somebody asks questions based on if they're a good fit for my audience, there is a big difference than someone that wants to get some of it. So for those things, I can see the difference. Hey, Margaret, how are you doing? It's good to see you again. I've not seen you for a long time. I'm still waiting for you to come and go to talk shows. Not sure when, but I'm not going to give up. Carol Ann, I don't know. What do you think with your experience? What I've just said.
Yeah, I love it. It's about giving up, not giving up. Definitely not give up. And you don't give up on people. You it's worth, working, someone who's worth working, supporting. But what you were saying is because they're there because they want, well, what's in it for me? What am I going to get out of it? Rather than what are the audience going to get out of it? And it is that there is that difference, and it is what I bring that is important. If all your focus is, well, what am I going to get out of it? That's a very taking energy, and that doesn't have humility, because it's all about, then it needs to have balance. And this is something that I do in my free writing challenge. We actually look at the purpose of what you're writing, and I've realized there's, and one of them is about what's in it for the reader. What are they going to get reading what you've written? And the other one is what is in it for you. And what I've realized is that if you don't address that part of you that's going, well, what me, then you can't be there for others. So you still have to be aware of, well, what is it that you want? So when you're writing, when you're speaking, actually acknowledge and look at, well, what's the purpose of me speaking here today? What's the purpose of me, what I'm writing? And, what am I to get out of it? And actually acknowledge that. Allow that to be there and write it out. Just be aware of it. Because once you've acknowledged that, you can then fully look at the other purpose, which is, well, what's in it for the audience? And then you can be fully do that and deliver it to the audience, because you're happy. You've already put it out in the universe. Well, this is what I would like, want to get out of it. What's in it for me? Now let's focus on what's in it for the audience and really work with that. And then you can be present with that purpose, whether you're speaking or whether you're writing. And then that's where the authenticity comes in, because you're not running a little backstory in your head that pulls you back from, if you are attempting to be out there for the audience, you've got this little voice inside going, what about me? What about me? There's no authenticity there. Being really authentic, knowing what they are, and just addressing that, acknowledging it, and then being for the audience. Whether a speaker or a writer. And that way it's much more powerful. You get more connection with your audience, because they can feel that you are truly there for them. And you'll be willing to also receive any feedback that you get from the audience. You'll be able to be their questions, and rather than feel threatened by them, you'll actually be able to be open and honest, be able to understand where they're coming from, because you're just ask questions back, understand, then that's humble, will actually admit, well, I quite understand, let me find out, ask questions, and that they do find out. So there's asking questions, there's being with other people, as well as knowing your own needs. So what do you think, Robin?
Yeah, I completely agree. I love what you said about authenticity. I think that humility really creates an environment of authenticity, not only with obviously the manager or the boss or whatever that looks like, but also with the staff. Like when you can be humble, when you can showcase that, and you can be willing to learn, and you can be willing to make mistakes, it really creates this really beautiful place where everyone can just be 100% themselves. They don't feel like they're putting on airs or that they have to be perfect or whatever that looks like. So I do agree that authenticity is very important when it comes to this. And I think just being humble really creates that environment. Humility really gives you fresh eyes to review things that have happened in the past and use it to better yourself, right? Which I think is a really powerful tool that, is underutilized, unfortunately. So I think that that's really important. But on top of that, I think you mentioned it too, Caroline. I'll just mention that, when you're humble, when you can create this beautiful environment of authenticity, it really, it almost creates this magic within the place that you work, and it creates loyalty as well. I think you're not going to have as much of a revolving door if people feel connected to you and also feel, in a safe container where they can express and where they can make mistakes and where they can learn, right? I think that's, so amazing. And that humble nature really creates that loyalty piece as well. And I think about, again, I always relate it back to what I do in my classes, because I feel like it ends up being relevant every time. But, that authenticity piece, like especially in my line of work, being authentic is like so important, because the kids see right through the facade. If you're trying to be something, or trying to be extra, or trying to be over the top, or whatever that looks like, the kids see through it, and you're going to lose your class, whether that be engagement levels or, just how they're feeling towards you. Maybe they're not going to come anymore, or maybe, or maybe when they do come, it's going to be really disruptive, or not a super fun time. And so I think authenticity and humility, when you can bring that into the classroom as well, really allows your students to, gain that loyalty piece, feel safe in their expression and making mistakes. And they can show up with humility and with authenticity and kindness. I think that modeling that for youth is also a very important aspect of all of this. And I just, again, think back to my past with some of the bosses that I've had before, and how they act, or their ego-based procedures. And all I remember thinking during those times was, I would never do things like this. I don't want, I'm glad that I'm seeing this. It has its place. I'm glad I'm seeing this so that I can act with more humility, with more authenticity, with more kindness when I become a boss one day. And obviously I ended up becoming a boss, which is great. So I was able to actually put that into practice. But once you actually see that, once you actually see that, you're able to really flip to the opposite. So even when you do have those bosses and those people in your life that maybe don't act with humility, still take it as a learning opportunity to move forward and to be the best version of yourself, right? We learn from people all the time, good or bad. So just acknowledging that, yes, obviously it's better to have humility, it's better to be authentic, but when you have those bosses that are not that way, just remembering, okay, what can I learn from this? I can learn that this isn't something that I want to be like, and I'm going to do things differently, right? Yeah, I think that's where I'll leave it for now. I don't know if Damsa wants to continue on that train.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it when you, Carol Ann, you spoke about authenticity. I think authenticity is very, very important as a leader. And Robin as well, you mentioned that a humble nature creates trust and peace, and that if you're not taking the children can see, if you're trying to be something that you're not, your children can copy your thing. So I think you're right, because it's like when we, if I ask them to do, if because I always tell them to be honest, and if they want to do it at that moment, they sure you can wait for 2 minutes. They do it that I teach them. I think they do it to wind me out, and they're like, "Be patient, mommy. I'll be with you in a second." And I'm like, "Now," and they're like, "No, you can wait." See, then my daughter, who is 7 years old, she goes, "Mommy, have you ever learned this thing of being patient? It means being patient when we are doing homework." So I'm like, "Oh, okay. So you're using my words against me." So I think you are right. Leadership, you have to surrender your pride. And you surrender your pride, then you are able to serve with humility. You are able to serve. That is a successful leader. If you your authentic, Anna was saying, you have to be authentic. People have to know that they can trust you, and they have to know, like, if you are a leader that people are scared of, like at work, like sometimes when people are talking, I've seen it when I used to work. People will be like, "I want to go and ask something." I'm like, "Why don't you just go ahead and ask?" They're like, "I'm scared. It will tell me off, or she'll tell me off." I'm like, "Why are you scared? If you need help." But then you realize that actually it's how the person comes forward is when they're speaking to people. Leadership is all about like threats. If you don't do this, I will do this, blah blah blah. The list goes on. So as a leader, people need to be able, if they can't do it or they want something, that person needs to be able to say, "Oh, I can go to Nomsa. I'll go to Nomsa and ask something." Or if they see something that can improve the company, they need to be able to have that freedom of speech freedom, like to say, "I can talk to Nomsa, I can do this, I can do this. If I see any improvement, I can go and ask if we can do this, or if I want to, my daughter, she's sick, or my son is sick, I can go and ask, can I go home?" That is freedom. That is a great leader, a successful leader who is able to lead with grace, who is able to lead with when they surrender, they are proud. That is the law. A great leader that leads in humility is the leader that understands the law of sacrifice. The law of sacrifice, it has laws of list that comes with it. It has you have to understand the principles, and you have to be a mindful leader. You have to be somebody who appreciates simple things in life. When people comes in and they do things, or the water comes, or you are busy and somebody is being thoughtful and they bring water, you have to be somebody that is very, very active, that notices the simple things that are being done, and you have to be somebody who brings joy to people. You have to be someone who is open to inconveniences, open to life, open to change, and someone who is who understand the qualities of humbleness. What does it mean to be humbled? So you have to be someone that really wants to save, because when you are a leader, then you are there to serve the team. the team, they look up to everything that you do. So if the team are not able to come and ask, able to that they can develop that company, you as the leader. So can they much have that they've experienced, they'll prefer to take it somewhere else, or they'll prefer to apply for a job somewhere else. But if you humbled somebody and you appreciate them and you speak the truth at the same time, you're not hurting people, so people can learn that can see your, you Carol Ann, or is it me?
What? Is that
Yeah.
you or me that what?
Yeah, anyone who wants to take over?
Okay. um, that is that thing about feeling the idea comfort. There's this within the Gap community, and they can be themselves, and they can share ideas, and also take feedback, and and also because the leader doesn't just shut them down, they listen to them. They're able to explain if it's not one that would work, or they may say, well, look, this before, there's something else you could do, we need to maybe change it in some way, and review it. But they're open to discussion rather than, sorry, done that before, won't work, which I've heard so many times. And I know it's easy because when I was teaching, we had new staff come in or younger staff come in, teachers straight from college with all these ideas, and they would come in and want to sort of implement them, but we had already tried them before. And so sometimes it is recognizing that experience needs to be listened to as well. And if you have experienced it, it's not about, oh, we've done that, and sharing an idea that they think it might be a good one to run with. It's about explaining, we attempted this before and this is what happened. Maybe review it. Maybe there's something that you could tweak together that was thought about, that you could then run with, that would actually improve things tremendously. So it is that listening, and it is being a people to bring what they say, share their ideas, that fear of being shut down, ridiculed, or said, oh no, tried that, didn't work. That open, as you said, being open to discussion. And ultimately, leader needs to take responsibility, one who takes responsibility. And at the end of the day, there is a decision that sometimes that does need to be made, and that's where that's that responsibility of the leader. And so if something needs to be decided on, there's ways of doing that such that everybody feels comfortable. I remember when we had a new head come into our school, we would have all this discussion. All the heads of departments would get together. We would discuss the idea, the topic, and come up with something. And then it took me a while to realise, but what I started noticing was that the head had already decided what he wanted to have happen. And I remember thinking, well, why have we discussed this? You've already decided. And very often it wasn't what we decided or come up with, suggested. But it was like he felt that we would then feel we were in on the discussion. That's how it felt to me, or it seemed to me. And I started to think, oh, I don't like this. It didn't feel like we were given an opportunity to really change things. Because, yeah, he'd already decided. So I've spent all of this last hour sitting on this discussion, and you'd already decided before we even started. So it doesn't leave a very good in your mouth. It doesn't leave a very good taste, and it can, as I say, sour that relationship with that person as much. Do think about, who is a great leader, who is willing to, okay, you've got your idea. What is the outcome you want to have happen? But ultimately, it's listening and maybe taking on board something that someone said. It took me a long time to get to that position because I did get there. We had this departmental meeting, and I was able to let myself sit back, listen to the discussion that was going on, and we took on board a completely different idea. We were actually sort of mixed a couple of ideas together and decided to try something else, which I hadn't been willing to do before. And it felt like, wow. But the team were then together because they'd felt like they'd had it. We'd come up with a joint decision, and I'd let go of, oh no, I don't know if it's going to work. It can't work. It's got to go the way that I decided. I let go of that. And therefore it opened up and it felt so much better, and things started to move differently. So it's that listening, it's being willing to go of your own ideas, but ultimately there has to be a decision made at the end. A little responsibility for whatever goes work, doesn't go. They won't put that on someone else and say, well, it was your idea, that's why it's gone wrong. Okay, how can we now move forward with it? And so definitely there is that safe space sharing ideas that somebody who, a leader that is humble and has that humility, can create. Something else which I'm looking at is actually they actually look for ways to recognize, celebrate their team's accomplishments and contributions. So rather than moving on to the next problem, there is a congratulations, there is celebration and a recognition of what they have done well and what their contribution has been. And for me, that was something that was very much missing when I was teaching and I was headed. I felt like I was most of the time fighting for my life. Nothing was ever acknowledged as to what good things that had happened and my contribution to us moving forward. It was always what the problems were, what was going wrong, and how you're going to fix it. And it was always this, well, what's going wrong, and no recognition of what I had accomplished. And that was the previous head that we had. That was something that he was very good at. And even though I was only head for a short time under him, I really felt and heard his acknowledgement of what I'd achieved by taking over as head of department. And for me, that just, thank you, and kept me going. But then, yes, I know the school went into special measures. There were things we needed to do. But another head came in and took over, and it was completely different. So, I've had a taste of both. And I think I've, even being head of department, I think I started off, I couldn't let go. I had to control it. And once I started letting go and allowing people to play to their strengths, things changed. And it's because I started to get to know myself. I started to get to know what I could or couldn't do, which I didn't really before. I started to be able to explain and in communication more. So I learned a lot there, and I've learned a lot more since. But certainly, it's about being in communication. It's recognizing your own strengths and weaknesses, and being willing to reach out and ask for support or delegate. Delegate. You don't need to do it all yourself. You really don't need to do it all yourself. But there's also ways of asking as well. It's making sure people understand what you're asking of them. And if they're not sure, being able to talk it through so that they feel comfortable and do understand what it is you're asking for, so that they can then take action on that and support you in whatever way. Yeah, there's a lot to this, isn't there? Actually, when you dive to it, when you dive deep. So what you're hearing, Robin?
Yeah. I loved what you said earlier about letting go of your own ideas about something. You were talking about someone who's already made the decision, and then you're kind of like, oh well, it's just a formality, like what are we even doing here? Again, it just like takes me back to my classes, because I think about when I first started teaching yoga, which is eons ago now, like 8 years ago. I was super attached to my lesson plan. So when I would plan something, I would come into class and I was like, this is how it has to go, because I made this and it's going to be awesome. And every single day for about 3 months, I came home crying, because I was like, things aren't working. I'm not meant for this. This is terrible. The kids don't want to follow me. What am I supposed to do? And I realized it took me long enough. I realized, oh, I need to let go of my rigid plan, my ideas that like it needs to be this way. I need to let go of that in order for this to be successful. And so it wasn't until I started doing that where I'd come in with a plan, of course, because you want to make sure that you're ready. But being willing to adapt and change, being willing to ask for ideas and suggestions, really turned the class from my class as an instructor to our class as a group, right? And kids are far more engaged and excited about the topic and happy to do what you are saying when they feel like they've contributed to it. And I truly feel like that's the same way with adults as well. If they feel like they've contributed, they're going to be way more passionate about it. They're going to be way more invested in what the outcome, right? Like often I hear a lot of bosses saying, oh, like none of my employees care about the business as much as I do, right? And that's probably true. But if you can bring them in on the ground level and making decisions and supporting in that, they're going to be far more invested and way more willing to do what you need them to do in those moments. So really, letting go of your rigid ideas and allowing others to contribute is super important. I also just wanted to mention, again, kind of with this yoga stuff and mindfulness stuff, when we talk about like having a really good balance in our life, whatever we're doing, whatever we're holding on the inside is going to show on the outside. And so I think just having a really, really good balance, just with everything that you do, finding balance between, sharing the accomplishments and the successes without being too arrogant, that sort of thing. And also, looking for ways to grow and improve and be curious. I think is super, super important. So acknowledging what's going on internally so that you can then show up in the best possible way externally as well. And I do truly think that humility can be taught. I know that some people inherently have a humble nature, but just because, you haven't been humble in the past doesn't mean that that's not something that you can learn as well. as long as you're staying in balance, as long as you're admitting your mistakes, you're open to learning, you're being a team player, those are all things that you can adapt and grow into, and it will make you a better leader overall. Truly. No, so did you?
Absolutely. It's having that awareness, isn't it? And being willing limitations and learn. And so, yes, I agree. Certainly, that humbleness can be something you can cultivate, but it comes through awareness and that to learn and to serve and to put others' needs, be interested in what others want. That's really what our late Queen was very good at. She was always there for the people, right from as a child, because what really sticks in my mind is at age 14, she was giving out, she was doing broadcasts to the nation, to the children during the war, to reassure them, because she wanted for them, and I think that's what being a humble leader is about. You are there for the people that you're serving. So certainly, I love what you were saying there, Robin. Nomsa, did you want to share?
I like you willing to let go. I like you willing to let go of your ideas and get promoting others as well, and acknowledge others as well. I think Robin and Carol and you mentioned to acknowledge the work that they do. I think is very, very important. And when you are willing to let go of what you think it should be, things should be, and work as a team, because there might be somebody that might have a solution to whatever things, if things are not working, or to take the company to the next level, all those things. I'm always open to the opportunities, but there are because if your vision align with the Gossip Talk Show's vision, I'm happy to try it on and see whether it works. But then you see that there's a difference between trying to work on the people like and you give to them the control, and that's why it's very, very important to have a coach. And when you have a coach, they actually help you to understand your vision, where it needs to go. And other thing that I've realized since following Shanda, she's actually a leader that actually she doesn't hold on to information. She gives it all. She gives the information you to use it to create your own leadership or to improve your own company. But when with other coaches, they don't give out everything. There are some coaches, I followed the laws of different coaches and gone to their event, and I'm like, oh, this one is so good. But when I'm following her, this woman, I've realized actually she actually lets go. She gives out everything. She even says she got kicked out of it because she likes giving too much. So they're like, no, we don't want to decide you give too much. You just give enough. Yeah, she likes giving. Who likes giving? And I think it works when you are a giver and you let people acknowledge what they do and letting go of what you think things should be. I think that is a leadership. And any words of encouragement? I know we've gone over any words of encouragement, Carol Ann, before we leave.
Yes, just recognizing that you have got the ability to be humble, and it's about asking questions, it's about encouraging new ideas, it's about practicing compassion and prioritizing learning and taking responsibility. about listening to others. So whether you're thinking about yourself all the time, and just stop, because it's okay to stop and start thinking about others. So I'd just like to leave you with Ezra Taft Benson's quote, which actually says, pride is concerned with who is right. Humility is concerned with what is right. I thought it was a lovely discussion. And there's one more actually. C.S. Lewis says, humility is not thinking less of yourself, less. It's beautiful. So it's not about thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. So I just love to leave you with that thought. Okay, Robin, is there anything that you'd leave our listeners with?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've really captured it all here. I think for me, again, I think it's something to think about. It's something to consider if you're not already doing it. I think do a little bit of research on it, learn the different ways that maybe you can, be humble in your workplace and act with humility. And on top of that, like I had mentioned before, I think it's really beneficial to have some mentors and have different ages of mentors, because that can really help you to get to that place, right? Really to get to that place. So I think that would be my biggest encouragement to everybody, would be find yourself some mentors, make sure they're different ages, learn from everybody all the time, and be willing to admit your mistakes.
Is Robin still talking when you finish? The connection is really bad. Okay, yeah. So for me, I'm just I think it's similar to yours, Robin, and seek ideas from others as well. Get a good coach or different coaches, seek ideas. But if you have a coach, you focus on what that coach is want to take you. Too many people, too many confusions. And if you make a mistake is not something that you have to blame yourself. We learn from those mistakes and admit it and move on. And also be somebody who is teachable and learn from everyone, whoever the people that you meet, to learn from them and be able to accept the feedback and also encourage collaboration and give reward when it's needed, and be somebody who is willing to take responsibilities all the time. Take the responsibilities. That's what a leader. That's what humility matters in leadership. Be somebody who is willing to take responsibility and take action, and blaming reward wherever reward is people. We are here at shows Monday to Wednesday time, and please, if you want to, please follow Carol Ann. Carol Ann has Carol Ann, would you like to explain about your event?
Yes, it's actually a 5-day immersive retreat where you can get to spend time away from the distractions of life and focus on writing a story, where you'll have a huge cradle of emotional support, so you can actually write what's there to be written. Really face yourself and be able to write. And that's coming up in October. So if you're interested, you've got a story to write, you're putting off, just contact me, we can have a chat. I'd love to hear you. So message me on my Facebook profile, Carol Ann Cooper. It'd be brilliant.
Thank you so much, Robin. Have you got anything coming up, or
well, I have a ton I have a ton of weekly classes coming up. I don't know if there's anyone watching from Edmonton, but we have, we're with a bunch of community leagues this fall. So we have 4 different community leagues around the city, and we're doing weekly classes for kids, mostly ages 3 to 12. So anyways, if anyone's interested in joining, those are happening. Super fun.
Yeah, you can get in touch with Robin on her social media, and if you want to get in touch with her, please get in touch with me. I'll connect you with her. And as at Ngozi Talk Shows, we have so many things that we are doing. If you want to find your own voice, lead from it, get in touch with us. And if you love as well, get and find your own voice. Bless, live with grace. Have a beautiful weekend, and we'll see you on Monday. That would be Queen's funeral. Really